He slapped the clipboard out of her hands. It hit the concrete with a crack that echoed through the bay of Station 12, scattering patient forms like white birds across an oil-stained floor. Ayanna Reed didn't flinch. She took in the small scene the way she'd been trained to take in a trauma call. Assess, breathe, act. Diesel smell, fluorescent lights buzzing, a gurney parked half-cocked, 3 trainees watching, a seasoned paramedic tightening his jaw but not moving, and the man who'd slapped the clipboard, Brent Holloway, standing too close with the kind of smile that had never once gotten him in trouble. "Whoops," he said, drawling the word like a joke that expected laughter. "Slippery fingers, Reed." "Yeah," Ayanna answered, voice level. "Yours." She bent to gather the papers, sliding them back beneath the metal clip. The sheaf included a mock trauma scenario she'd spent an hour drafting the night before. Car versus bicycle, head trauma, suspected spinal injury, hypovolemic shock. She had highlighted field triage tags in careful colors, not because she needed to, but because it calmed her to bring order to chaos. She'd learned that from Aunt Les, who taught Aikido and always said the point wasn't throwing people, it was finding balance where other folks tried to tip you over. "Everything okay over here?" asked Field Trainer Morales without looking over. He was charting at the desk, pretending not to see what everyone saw. "Peachy," Brent said for both of them. He thumbed the crest embroidered on his jacket. Holloway, in thread so bright it caught the light. "Just helping the recruit learn the ropes." Ropes. Ayanna didn't answer. It didn't matter that she was 20, not 17, or that this was the Bay Harbor County EMS Academy, not a high school hallway, or that she had aced the midterm and lifted the cot with the right back mechanics even when the guys tried to accidentally load it crooked. The ropes were the same, no matter the building. Someone decided he owned the room and the rest of them were invited to prove they belonged. She set the clipboard on the metal table, squared it to the edge, and forced her shoulders down from her ears. Her mother called that the turtleneck, when stress tucked her head into the soft shell of her muscles. "Chin up, baby," Mama would whisper, the words floating over the sink while she washed diner plates at 2 a.m. "You can be soft without shrinking." "All right, recruits," Morales finally said, spinning in his chair. "Ride along, evals start Monday. If your packets aren't complete by the end of today, you don't ride. If you don't ride, you don't get licensed. Got it?" A chorus of "yes, sir," and "got it" filled the bay. Brent lingered. He waited until the others had drifted toward the gear lockers. "Hey, Reed," he said, dropping his voice. "You riding with Station 7, or you want the A-team at 12 to show you how it's really done?" She looked at him. Really looked. The glossy hair he kept too long under a cap he never quite wore straight. The scruff he claimed was regulation, though she'd watched Morales send 2 other recruits home to shave. The easy slouch, the assumption. "I put in for 7, she said. "They're closer to South End." Brent whistled. "Oh, so you want to run your little neighborhood?" His smile sharpened. "Figures." She'd grown up 2 miles from Station 7 in an apartment that rattled when buses braked. The South End was red maple trees and corner stores, aunties on stoops, the Haitian barber who kept his window plants alive in winter, and a patrol car that sometimes circled slow at night. It was also where her grandmother had died waiting for an ambulance during a storm, a story told in her family the way other families inherited song, raw and repeated. This academy wasn't an abstract choice. It was the map of her life. "There's nothing little about my neighborhood," she said. He leaned in closer. "You know what I mean." She did. She had known since orientation when he'd read her last name and said, "What kind of Reed are you?" As if blackness came with a catalog number. She'd known it when he cracked a joke about how fast her cousins ran during a foot chase scenario, even though EMS didn't chase anyone and, last she checked, he'd never run from anything but wind sprints. She'd known it when she caught Morales's gaze slide away again and again, like eyes looking for the nearest exit. "Let it go," whispered Savannah, another recruit, as they scrubbed the rig later. She was small and quick with a nervous laugh. He's like this with everybody. No, Ayanna said, voice clipped. He's not. Savannah's face tightened, the way white faces sometimes did when they wanted to argue and didn't. You know his dad's a captain with Harbor PD, right? On the EMS board? People say I can make or break your ride, he'd told Ayanna once when the class was splitting up for trauma lab. He said it with a grin, in a voice that sounded like a tease, which is how people like him dressed threats, in jokes so that if you pushed back you'd look humorless, touchy, loud. Now, in the glow of the rig's interior light, Ayanna wiped down the rails and watched the reflection of her own face in the aluminum. Cheekbones like Mama's, hair braided into a braid that would fit under her helmet, eyes that gave nothing away. I know who his father is, she said. I also know the manual better than he does. The manual won't protect you, Savannah whispered. And for a beat the noise of the station dropped away, just the distant beep of a monitor and someone hauling hose out back. It sounded like Savannah was warning her, and maybe she was. Ayanna folded the towel deliberately, as if she could press her fear into a neat square and stack it where it couldn't topple. Maybe not, she said, but it'll protect my patients. That's why I'm here. That night, she ate cold fries at the kitchen table while Mama soaked her feet in Epsom salt. The apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and the stubborn scent of old grease that no cleanser could scrub out of old walls. You got that turtleneck, Mama said without looking up from her tattered paperback. Ayanna blew out a breath. Just a day. You want to tell me about the day? Ayanna hesitated. There was a version of this she could tell that would shrink the edges, make it palatable. He's annoying. He's competitive. He's a jerk. There was also the version that tasted like rust in her mouth. He slapped my clipboard. Mama set the book down. On purpose? On entitlement. Mama's eyes softened with an anger she kept quiet for her child, the way she had kept so much quiet. Rent due, shifts swapped, some man's comment swallowed on a bus. And your trainer? Pretended not to see. Of course. Mama leaned her head back against the chair, eyes on the ceiling as if reading a prayer there. What now? Now I finish my packet, Ayanna said, and I go to 7, and I ride every mile like it matters. And if he doesn't let you, I'll make it so he has to. How? Ayanna thought of Aunt Les sweeping the mat after class, the broom making a hush-hush sound, the way she'd touch Ayanna's shoulder and set it back, gentle but firm. By not getting tired before the fight starts, Ayanna said, and by not letting him pick the arena. Mama smiled, slow. That's my girl. On Monday, Bay Harbor woke to a nor'easter that slammed rain sideways and rattled the station's bay doors like knuckles on a steel drum. A city like theirs revealed itself in weather. Leaky roofs, clogged drains, patience stretched thin. The board lit up with calls before dawn. Syncope in a laundromat, chest pain at the bus depot, a fall in an alley. Station 7 was down a medic because Rivera had a family emergency, and Ayanna's phone buzzed with a text from admin. Station 12 can take you for temporary ride-along. Report 0600. She stared at the screen. 12. Brent's station. She typed back, My preceptor is scheduled at 7. The reply was instant. Capacity issue. 12 is your best learning opportunity. Best learning opportunity. She could hear the voice that had typed it. Smooth, certain, plausible. She pulled on her academy jacket and grabbed her gear. The storm had a way of making everything feel both urgent and slow. Traffic snarled. Sirens wailed into wet wind. Pedestrians rolled their shoulders into the rain like they could outrun drops. By the time Ayanna jogged into Station 12, her braid dripped water down the back of her collar. Morales looked up from the duty roster with an expression that read as apology if you were generous and boredom if you weren't. "Morning, Reed," he said. "You're with Holloway for your first two." Something inside her tried to rise, a small hot surge. She swallowed it. "Copy." Brent strolled in from the bay, coffee steaming in his hand, damp jacket unzipped as if the storm were for other people. He took her in. Raindrops, neat gear, jaw set. "Look who joined the big leagues." "Let's work," she said. Call 1 was a diabetic low in a diner 2 blocks away. The kind of call that had taught her to read a room. A cook yelling, a waitress wringing her hands, a man slumped in a booth with a plate of pancakes cooling in front of him. Brent tossed her the glucometer like it was a toy. "Show me what you got." She did it by the book. Glucose check. Patient's son handed her a crumpled list of meds. Oral glucose, recheck, lift assist. The man's color came back, confusion lifting like fog. "You okay, sir?" Ayanna asked, crouching to meet his gaze. "My sugar dropped," he said, sheepish. "My wife always tells me to eat before my insulin, but she's visiting her sister, and I thought—" "It happens," she said softly. "You're all right. Let's set you up with a follow-up." On the rig, Brent leaned back and kicked muddy water off his boot without checking if it might hit her. "Cute," he said. "Good bedside." "It isn't cute," she said, stripping off gloves. "It's respectful." He smirked. "You talk like a social worker. And you talk like a guy who's never been scared." He pushed off the bench, eyes flashing with something she recognized. Surprise, maybe, that she hadn't swallowed his bait. "You got a mouth on you." "Reed?" "Only when it's needed." Call 2 came fast on the heels of the first. A slip and fall in a warehouse where the ceiling leaked in 6 places and the foreman wanted them in and out before the supervisor noticed someone had dialed 911. The patient was a black woman in her 50s with a twisted ankle and a face that refused to show pain. Ayanna saw the way she glanced at the foreman and back at them. She recognized it. How many times had her mother filed herself down to fit inside a boss's comfort? "We can wrap and transport," Ayanna said. "Possible fracture." "Unnecessary," the foreman cut in. "She's fine. She can sign refusal. Right?" He looked at Brent, not at her. Brent nodded. "Yeah, if she wants." Ayanna looked at the woman. "What do you want, ma'am?" The woman lifted one shoulder like she was too tired to shrug. "I can't miss hours." "If you don't treat this and it's more than a sprain," Ayanna said gently, "you might miss more." Brent rolled his eyes. "You trying to counsel her or treat her, Reed? Paperwork's the same either way." Ayanna ignored him. She lowered her voice. "We can call your daughter if you want. Let her know where you'll be." She saw it then, the flicker of relief, the yes tucked inside a maybe. The woman nodded once. "Okay. Call Keisha." On the ride, the woman held Ayanna's hand. It startled her, the simple intimacy of it. It reminded her of her grandmother's hand, dry and warm. "What's your name, baby?" the woman asked. "Ayanna." "You going to be a good one?" Ayanna smiled. "That's the plan." After they cleared the emergency department, Brent finally voiced what he'd been holding. "You need to separate your thing from the job." "My thing?" "This savior vibe, the whole community hero act. We're medics. We move bodies from point A to point B and try not to get sued." She faced him squarely. Rain battered the hospital bay. Water sheeted down the asphalt like a river. "We're medics," she said. "We treat human beings. If you can't see the difference, maybe you're in the wrong job." For a second, she saw something unguarded in his face, a flicker like an exposed wire. Then the smirk slid back into place. "Careful, Reed. Somebody might think you're ungrateful." "For what?" "For being here." He lifted his chin toward the hospital. "For the opportunity. Not everyone gets it." She wanted to ask who everyone was. She wanted to say opportunity wasn't a gift if it came packaged with someone else's foot on your neck. Instead, she took a slow breath and counted the beats in her chest. Morales had said they'd get 2 calls today. The storm would carry the rest to other stations. She just had to make it through the first rotation without giving Brent a reason to write her up. Back at Station 12, the mood sharpened. Someone had copied the ride-along roster and tacked it up near the coffee maker with notes scribbled in margins, a practice exam answer key, a rude doodle that made Ayana's stomach curl. It was the kind of joke that relied on silence. She felt heat rise in her face, not because she was ashamed, but because she was furious they expected her to be. She started to pull the paper down. Brent got there first. "Come on, Reed," he said, eyes glinting. "Have a sense of humor." She didn't lower her hand. "Take it down." "Or what?" He stepped closer, voice dropping to something intimate and ugly. "You going to run to Morales?" "He loves me." Playful voice, teeth underneath. "I'm going to file the paper and list witnesses," she said, keeping her voice even. "Then I'm going to copy the section of the manual about hostile work environments and tape it over the coffee maker so no one can say they didn't know." "You sound like a lawyer." "Or a person who reads." He held her gaze, and for the first time, she saw the grind underneath his confidence. That there was a boy in there who had been told his name gave him the right to walk through rooms without asking permission, and that he believed losing that right meant losing himself. She didn't feel sorry for him. She just understood how the machine worked. Morales walked in then, took in the paper, the posture, the charge in the air. "We good?" "No," Ayana said. Brent chuckled, head tipping back. "We're fine, Sarge." Morales let a beat pass. The fluorescent lights hummed. Outside, a siren dopplered by. A sound that had always meant help to Ayana until she learned who it skipped. "Handle it like adults," he said finally, voice tired. He turned away before anyone could ask which adults he meant. That night, the storm knocked out power in half the south end. Ayana's block went dark just as she slid her key into the lock. In the hush, neighbors emerged with candles and flashlights. Someone dragged a grill to the courtyard and lit charcoal. A teenage boy bragged he could fix the transformer with duct tape. Mama laughed in the doorway and handed out cups of lemonade. In the glow of phone flashlights and old lanterns, the courtyard looked like a stage set for a story older than any of them. People making do, people making away. Ayana told Mama everything as they ate grilled hot dogs off paper plates, the clipboard, the ride-along, the joke taped up like a dare, the way Morales kept finding the exact angle where he could look anywhere but at her. "You want me to call down there?" Mama asked, half kidding, half ready to storm a building for her child. "No," Ayana said. She thought of the warehouse woman's hand in hers, of the diabetic man's shy smile when his confusion faded, of Aunt Les teaching her to pivot when someone pushed. "I want to do this right." "Right doesn't always win," Mama murmured. "It does eventually," Ayana said, not because she believed that as a fact, but because she needed to believe it as a practice. Later, in the dark of her room with rain still needling the window, she wrote an email, not a complaint, a report, facts, dates, witnesses, citations. She CC'd herself, printed a copy, and slid it into a folder labeled with the kind of exhale that sounded like resolve. Documentation. If they were going to play by rules, then she would become a book of them. In the morning, the city smelled like wet earth. The storm had scoured the sky, leaving a pale blue that made the buildings look cleaner than they were. Ayana walked to the bus past a chalk message on the sidewalk. "You are needed." Some kid had scrawled it in big, shaky letters, maybe as a dare to themselves. She felt it land. At Station 12's bay, Brent waited with that loose-hipped posture that read like a performance. "Look how relaxed I am in my kingdom." He tossed a folded paper bag onto the gurney. "Breakfast," he said. "Truce?" The bag held a jelly donut and a note in someone else's handwriting. "Watch your tone, girl." The jelly oozed like a joke that bled. Ayanna lifted the note by 2 fingers and slid it into her folder. "I don't eat warnings," she said. His eyes cooled. "You really don't know how this works." "I do," she said, meeting his gaze until he had to be the first to look away. "And I'm still here." What she didn't say, what she kept like a stone in her palm, was that every time the radio crackled, they were both going to the same place. To someone's mother on a floor. To someone's cousin with a bullet in a leg. To a body that didn't care about board seats and last names. She would show up for those people even if the room tried to push her out. She would show up until the room changed, or she did. The tones dropped then, loud in the morning calm. "Medic 12, respond for assault, 3 on 15 Harbor Avenue inside the pharmacy. Caller reports male with head injury, PD en route." Brent grabbed the jump bag. "Let's roll, Reed." She caught his shoulder just for a second. "We treat first," she said. "We ask questions after." His smirk ticked back into place. "Whatever makes you feel noble." "It makes me feel human." They climbed into the rig. The doors slammed. The diesel caught. As they pulled into traffic, lights strobed, siren wailing. Ayanna pressed her palm flat against her thigh to ground herself. She pictured Aunt Les's mat, the center point she could return to even in motion. She stared down the road where blue lights flickered ahead and thought, not his arena. Not this time. He barked the words in her ear over the din of the siren. "Stay behind me, rookie. This one's messy." Ayanna didn't answer. She kept her eyes fixed on the wet road ahead as the rig tore through Bay Harbor, weaving past traffic. Each flash of light bounced off the pharmacy's glass front in the distance, where 2 cruisers already stood nose to nose, their light bars spraying red and blue across the rain-darkened street. When the doors swung open, the air reeked of bleach, copper, and panic. A young black man in a windbreaker crouched in the aisle between cough syrup and vitamins. One hand pressed to his temple where blood leaked through his fingers. 2 officers hovered at the door, hands on holsters, eyes on the patient as if he might be a suspect instead of a victim. "Step aside," Ayanna said firmly, slipping past them with the trauma bag. She knelt beside the man. "Sir, I'm Ayanna. I'm here to help. Can you tell me your name?" The man winced. Darius." "You with me, Darius? Stay awake. Keep talking." She gloved up and parted his hair to check the wound. Laceration, possible concussion. Nothing about him screamed threat. Only fear. Behind her, Brent chuckled. "Guy probably tried to steal something." Caught a bottle to the head. Ayanna shot him a look sharp enough to slice. "Or he's a human being bleeding on linoleum. Pressure dressing. Now." For once, Brent obeyed. The gauze unrolled between them, and together they wrapped the wound. Darius clutched Ayanna's wrist. His skin was clammy, his voice hoarse. "They wouldn't call you," he whispered. "I dialed. They kept saying, 'Wait outside, wait for PD.' But I was dizzy. I thought—" "You did the right thing," Ayanna said softly. "You called for help, and we're here." One officer cleared his throat. "He matches the description of a suspect from—" "No," Ayanna snapped. Her voice filled the fluorescent silence. "He matches the description of a patient." For a heartbeat, even Brent didn't speak. They loaded Darius onto the cot, wheeling him into the storm, sirens and whispers swirling behind them. By the time they transferred him into the ER, Ayanna's hands were sticky with blood, and her chest heavy with the weight of more than one battle. Back at Station 12, Brent finally broke the silence. "You know you made a scene in front of cops, right? That kind of thing follows you." "So does a reputation for treating people like trash," Ayanna replied. She peeled off her gloves, tossing them into the biohazard bin. "I'll take my chances." For the next 2 weeks, the storm outside calmed, but the storm inside Station 12 only grew. Brent made comments under his breath that rippled through the bay. Her eval sheets came back with vague marks. Attitude. Needs teamwork. Even though her patient care notes were flawless. Morales' eyes slid away whenever she tried to bring it up. But Ayanna wasn't the only one watching. Savannah started dropping by her table at lunch, murmuring, "I saw how you handled the chest pain yesterday. Textbook." Another trainee, Malik, nodded at her in the hall. "Keep your head up. People talk." Even a senior medic, Rivera, stopped her after drills. "Word travels," he said quietly. "Don't let them make you small." It was subtle, but real. The beginning of a circle forming around her. One evening after shift, Ayanna walked home through South End, her folder of documentation heavy in her backpack. She cut past the basketball courts where kids still played in the chill, sneakers squeaking, laughter echoing against chain link. One boy tripped, landing hard on the asphalt, and before she could think, Ayanna was kneeling beside him, checking for fractures. He blinked up at her with wide eyes. "You a doctor?" he asked. "Not yet," she said, smiling. "I'm training to be a paramedic." "Cool," he breathed, his friends gathering around. A black paramedic. She froze at the simplicity of it. Cool because he could see himself in her. Cool because the world hadn't shown him enough of that picture yet. She ruffled his hair gently. "Yeah," she said. "And you could be one too." The words lingered with her long after she walked away. At Station 12 the next morning, Brent shoved a newspaper across the table. The headline screamed about chaos at the pharmacy incident, focusing on the police response but mentioning in one sentence that EMS had intervened decisively. "You're welcome," Brent said smugly. "Guess we're heroes now." Ayanna stared at the paper. No mention of Darius's name. No mention that he had to beg for help. Just the usual story where systems failed and someone like Brent got to wear the cape. She folded the paper neatly and slid it back. "Some of us were already heroes," she said. His smirk faltered. Just for a moment. It was the beginning of something neither of them could stop. Because the whispers spread faster now, not just among trainees, but through the hospital hallways, into the South End, onto the lips of people who'd seen her stand her ground. Kids in the neighborhood called her Medic Reed. Nurses winked and slipped her extra forms with praise scribbled in margins. And when Brent muttered his next comment, the silence that used to follow was broken by Malik's low voice. "Enough." Ayanna felt it then. The shift. The balance Aunt Les had promised her. Not victory, not yet, but momentum. And she knew Brent felt it too, because the next words out of his mouth weren't jokes. They were threats. "You think you're changing something?" he hissed after drills, close enough that only she could hear. "You don't know who you're up against. My family runs this city. When I'm done with you, you'll wish you never set foot in this station." Ayanna met his stare without blinking. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe when I'm done, you'll wish you'd learn to treat people like human beings." The bay door rattled with wind. Somewhere, a call tone blared. And both of them knew the real fight hadn't even started. Rain hammered the courthouse steps like fists against a door demanding to be opened. Inside, the room was packed. Recruits in pressed uniforms, reporters hunched over notepads, neighbors from the South End squeezed shoulder to shoulder. At the defense table, Ayanna sat straight-backed, her academy jacket zipped high to hide the bruise blooming under her collar. Beside her, David Chen, one of the few attorneys willing to take her case pro bono, whispered, "Breathe. Don't let them see you crack." Across the aisle, Brent lounged with his father, Captain Holloway, radiating smug certainty. His face was clean, not a mark on it, though Ayanna remembered the shove he'd given Malik in the bay, The way Malik had gone down hard while Brent laughed. Yet here Brent was, polished, rehearsed, untouchable. The prosecutor began. Your Honor, this is a clear case of misconduct. Recruit Reed assaulted fellow trainees, incited division within the academy, and undermined the chain of command. The words buzzed like hornets. Ayanna clenched her jaw. Assault? Division? She remembered Brent's whispered threats, the donut bag with its cruel note, Morales turning away again and again. Division wasn't what she'd caused. It was what had been waiting, silent, until someone refused to keep swallowing it. When her turn came, David rose, unfolding a stack of papers. We have documentation, he said, voice steady. Dates, witnesses, copies of evals marked attitude without explanation, photos of notes left in her locker, reports from patients praising her professionalism, and, he turned to the gallery, testimony. One by one, people stood. Savannah first, trembling but firm. I saw Brent slap the clipboard out of her hands. Malik next, still limping. He pushed me, not her. Then Rivera, the senior medic, voice thick with shame. I should have spoken up sooner. Recruit Reed was the only one treating patients with dignity. The rest of us let things slide. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Captain Holloway, your son seems to appear in every one of these accounts. Do you wish to respond? Brent's father stood, jaw tight. My son is a good man from a good family. He's being targeted because of who he is. This is a witch hunt, nothing more. The courtroom rustled. Ayanna caught the eyes of neighbors from the south end, their faces set like stone. For years, they'd watched their complaints vanish into files, their voices drowned under uniforms and last names. Not today. David called his final witness. Darius, the man from the pharmacy. Bandaged, still healing, he took the stand. His voice shook, but every word landed like a hammer. If it wasn't for her, I'd be dead. The cops didn't see me. Holloway didn't see me. But she did. She treated me like I mattered. Silence. Then the judge spoke, each word measured. Recruit Reed, the evidence shows you did not incite violence. You reported it. You endured harassment and chose documentation over retaliation. Charges dismissed. As for this academy, she looked directly at Morales. There will be an independent review of its practices. Enough is enough. Relief flooded Ayanna's chest, but as the gavel struck, she caught Brent's eyes. His smile was gone, replaced by something raw, panic maybe, or the crumbling of a story he'd been told his whole life. Weeks passed. The review board suspended Morales. Captain Holloway's influence cracked under public pressure. And Ayanna returned to Station 7, where the community greeted her with hugs, home-cooked meals, and chalk messages on sidewalks. Thank you, Medic Reed. But the real change came quieter. Savannah transferred stations, choosing to train under Rivera, who vowed never to look away again. Malik started mentoring younger recruits, his limp a reminder of both harm and resilience. Darius stopped by the station one afternoon, dropping off coffee with a grin. Still here, he said. And Brent? He vanished from the academy roster. Rumors swirled, disciplinary leave, family connections stretched thin, a father's empire shrinking. Ayanna didn't celebrate. She just felt the air lighten, like a storm breaking. 6 months later, she stood on a stage at graduation, gold braid glinting in the sun. Her name was called, and the crowd erupted. Mama cried openly. Aunt Les cheered loud enough to echo off the rafters. And kids from the South End waved handmade signs, "Our medic." When she took the mic, she spoke from her chest. I didn't want to fight these battles. I came here to help people. But sometimes, doing the right thing means standing up, even when the room tells you to sit down. It means refusing to laugh at the joke that hurts, refusing to ignore the bruise you didn't cause. refusing to let silence be mistaken for consent. I fought back because I had to. But the real victory is this. She gestured to the crowd. A community that knows its worth. A class that learns from mistakes. A system that maybe is finally starting to listen. The applause shook the hall, and as Ayanna stepped down, kids pressed forward, asking for selfies, autographs, advice. She saw herself in their eyes. Possibility, courage, the seed of resilience. Later that night, sitting in the quiet of her apartment, Mama poured sweet tea and said, "You did it, baby girl. You changed something." Ayanna shook her head, smiling softly. "We did it, and we'll keep doing it, because the fight doesn't end with me." She glanced at her phone, buzzing with messages from students across the state, asking how to organize, how to document, how to resist. She typed back carefully, "Start small, stand together, and never forget, you matter." The war was over, but the work was just beginning, and Ayanna Reed, paramedic of Bay Harbor, was ready. So what do you think? If you were in Ayanna's place, would you have fought back, documented, or walked away? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story spoke to you, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience and justice.